Good evening, Olivia. We are happy to have you here. Can you please tell us your name?
My name is Olivia Chukwu. From Izmo in Isi Alambana local government area of Imo State.
We are so happy, Olivia, that you've offered us this opportunity to share your story with you and to hear your story once more. A story you shared with all of us some 23 years ago. And I'm so glad that you were able to tell us that herbs, that you believe in herbs and also in Orthodox medicine. God really blessed Africa, and that is what your story is. We have everything we need, and we only need to look inwards and discover the things we have in order to live also the way God wants us to live. So I'm very happy that the whole world will hear your story, that the world will believe, especially African people, will come to believe in themselves and believe in all they have. And also, through your story and your experience, challenge themselves to being proud of who they are and what they have, and also challenge themselves to developing or to improving on the talent and the gifts God has endowed us with. Thank you, Olivia. I remembered having visited you that should be more than 25 years ago, no, more than 20 years ago, or something like that. And I visited you when you were sick, and you were diagnosed of a very serious ailment that everybody thought you were gone. And later on, we heard of a miracle that happened. Can you tell us what really happened at that time?
Thank you, Father. That experience of about 23 years now, that was in 1998. It's something that I'll always remember and I'll always keep, and I'm always happy to share. I was a young girl then. I was living in the village with my grandmother. At some time, I became angry that I don't go out. People come back, people go back to town. I don't go out. No holiday. You like junior WAEC, you still remain in the village. And I was a bit, it was a season like this. After Christmas, I was angry with my aunties and everybody. I said, I've never gone for any form of holiday. So one of my aunties who stay in Lagos said I should join her to Lagos, even if it's 2 weeks to spend for holiday and then come back. Because she reasoned with me. I followed them to Lagos on 5th of January, 1998. And that was my first time leaving my hometown for such a far journey. We got to Lagos very late in the day, around 6 p.m. I noticed my legs were swollen that day, and I showed that it was like, you've not been on this kind of far journey. By the time you move around, my brothers, husband's sister will take you around in the next 2 days or so, you'll be fine. But I didn't get better. The following day, the legs were still swollen. They took me around, go to amusement park, go to different places. I came back and I was still the same. By the third day, I was waking up with puffy face. My face will be swollen in the morning and gradually subsides by evening. Then she called a friend who happened to be a nurse that she doesn't understand this. The woman now asked me if I make urine very well. As a young girl, I didn't even know if I was making urine or not. So they said I should now check. So they gave me a container to check my urine till the next day. And it was down on me that I wasn't making a good quantity of urine. By the next day, I wasn't even able to make up to 200 mils. So the woman said she should take me to the hospital that it could be more serious than we thought. So we headed to the hospital to see a doctor who took my blood samples and urine samples, made some investigation, and gave me some injections that day. And I was able to make a little urine, more than I was making then. But after then, it was still like I was going to now rely on that laxis to make urine. So by the time the results of the investigation came out, the man told my auntie that this is a little bit serious, that they need to take me to a specialist to look at it, that is a kidney issue. That my urea was high and creatinine levels were high, and they should actually check. They asked me a lot of questions concerning throat infections, urinary tract infections. I used to be a girl that I don't have anything to complain about. So everything was just coming in the negative as to point to why I was having a kidney infection. So I was referred to go to Luth. But my auntie, being someone who also uses Luth, has a specialist doctor who was seeing her then. She was having some obs and gyno case. So she called her doctor, who told her not to go to Luth, but go to Healing Field. Healing Crossfield is in Ajoy State. Then there's some group of doctors that work in Luth that are there. So we went there. They defined it as a clear case of acute nephrotic syndrome. And they said the nephrologist in Luth is not even around. And being a young girl and being an acute issue, that they need to follow it up immediately. So they don't want us to now go to Luth to waste time, because there is no doctor there to see us at that time. So they gave us option of taking UNTH Enugu or Nnamdi Azikiwe University Teaching Hospital, Nnewi. We chose to go to Enugu. I spent just 2 weeks in Lagos from one hospital to the other. And then by January 23rd, thereabout, we were in Enugu. And we went to UNTH Enugu, where all the care continued from January, February, March, and I wasn't getting better. My tummy was so big, my face was completely swollen. It doesn't go down any longer. You hardly notice if I had the nose, because I was just that big. And at some point, and finance wasn't that like that, coming that easily. And at some point, they requested I would start dialysis, because it was going up chronic and was resulting to a kidney failure. So my family decided to, because to them it was a helpless case. Even when the doctors talked to me, giving me hope, they will call my people aside to tell them some other things, which I may not know. And at that point, they decided to take me out of the hospital against medical advice. And we went home, probably to be closer to my grave. I was in the village. At that time, I don't even sit upright like this, because my tummy is just too full that I don't even breathe well. I have a special seat made for me that it had to recline, like in a way that I could be comfortable. I was like that until some good Samaritan, because a lot of people were coming from the church, from my parish then, because as a young girl, I was quite active in church activities. And then,
I also visited.
yes, Father, you came. Quite a lot of priests, a lot of people came. The Reverend Father then in my parish, Father Nwachukwu Godwin, of blessed memory. At the point he knew that my family were going through some financial stress, and they started a second collection for me at every mass. At the end of every mass, they select some people from different societies, Mary League Youth Choir, and people that will come to deliver that collection. And it wasn't in one of those selection that one Sir Ekejuba, and I used to work in Shell in Port Harcourt. He just came around and was in the church when that announcement was made. And after that, he said he wanted to see the girl. So he followed the people that came. And from that, he came. Anybody that comes then to see me goes in tears. And then my grandmother that was looking after him while I was young was still there. She was always in tears. Everybody cried to God, oh, whatever God, they know better to do something. At that time, I was just using the drugs I was using at Enugu, but those things were not working. I was just getting worse. That's Ekejuba, in collaboration with some of his friends from Shell Port Harcourt, arranged and brought one foreigner, a foreign doctor that came from Manchester then or so. They arranged for me to meet the doctor at one place in 59 Old Market Road in Owerri. That was where I saw the lady doctor, foreigner, I can't remember her name. So she came with some drugs, medication. Sir Ekejuba was the financier of that. So after when she referred us back to Enugu to have dialysis, people were willing and ready to go to Enugu again, but I am the patient, and at that time, I was ready for the worst. I told everybody that I'm not going back to Enugu, and at that time, a lot of people were coming to see me. They're coming with different options. Some would say it's a spiritual attack. Some would say it's Mamet spirit. Some would say it was the spirit of my late mom. Probably she wants me. And a lot of people were coming up with a lot of things. And some say it's better we will take her to the river and do sacrifice and all of that so that the spirit of the water or whatever could leave me. But most of those things, not just most, all of those beliefs I did not accept. But there was a particular woman who came one day and said that she had seen this kind of case somewhere and the person got better, that she has someone she wants to bring. And I told my dad that I want to see that person the woman talks about. Of all people who were coming with the options of trad medicals, my mind went with that, and I said I wanted to see him. They said he was in Calabar. They don't know if he was still there, but they will contact somebody who brought him for someone and all of that. So eventually, the next day, my dad had to go with the woman in search of him. The man had actually left Calabar and was residing in his local village here in Umoji. He was quite an old man. He was no longer practicing. He said he worked as a medical personnel in Calabar for a long time. What surprised me most was that most of the drugs that I have been using, this man has them in his pack, but he doesn't even know their names. But he has them somewhere expired. But when he came, he looked at me and told me that I was going to survive. There was something he used to check. I don't know how he did that. He said the fluid in my body are still fresh.
Not bad that I was going to be well. So that day, he started with, I was asking him, I want to know how he wants to manage me.
He said he was going to give me local herbs and also give me the same drugs I was using before. But before I would start using the same drugs I was using before, I will use
his own local herbs. He told them to make fire outside for him. He made fire outside.
He brought in a needle. The dialysis they wanted me to go and do in Enugu, he did it locally. He brought a big needle because then my feet were all swollen. So told them to dig a hole where after they made that, he
put that needle in my legs and then my tummy here and here. And I
put some balls so and they were draining. He didn't finish that draining that day. He stopped halfway. And by the time he was done, the herbs he was cooking was done.
I can't really, though I'm familiar with some of the grass and then I don't know some, but
I saw the things he brought and mixed. There was even some that looks like a breadfruit that he had to cut in bits to. It wasn't pleasant to drink it, but I had to.
All this while, even while I was in Lagos, I stopped taking salt, stopped taking
good meal. But then what he told them to be using differently was a seed and leaf in every meal. Let there be oziza seed. And
everywhere, everybody around my village then went in search of oziza like gold.
so that was how gradually he did that draining for 5 days daily. After each drain, he will give me different. The first day, it was only one type of concussion. The second day, it was 2 different types, and that 2 different types continued to the 5th day. After the 5th day, he stopped draining and started giving me the same injection that wasn't working in Enugu. And surprisingly, at that point, I started making urine myself. After the herbs, so I continued with the herbs for a longer time, about 3 months. I returned from Enugu in April. This man came in June, because by April, May, and early June, I was seeing the foreigner, the doctor. Then, when she now referred us to go to Enugu for dialysis again, I opted not to go, and I decided to just stay and just take whatever that comes. But then this man came around, and then
my hope came alive again. In less than 2 weeks, I was well again, because by weekend of that week that he started coming, my uncle came back from Enugu. He was surprised because when they told him that I was getting better and what they needed from me was mostly uziza leaf and seed, he went to
Suka from Enugu to go and charter uziza like goat feed. And rushed in. Surprisingly, he didn't even know he was expecting to see me on that special chair. But I had left the chair. I was the one that opened the gate for him.
By the time he drove in and he was asking where they told him that I was the one that came to hold it for him. It was an amazing surprise for him. And ever since then, I was getting better and things were better. So the period from July, November was just for me to get better. Even in the next year, I was still being seen as an invalid. Couldn't go back to school for my normal life until about year 2001 when I went back to school and then to sit for WAEC in 2002. But then God has been faithful and it is a very wonderful and amazing story that I would always love to share.
And did you go back to the doctors after this healing to check?
Yes.
My uncle, because the whole scenario and everything was so
Amazing.
although there was a cruel twist afterwards, that man through which God used
To do this miracle.
couldn't live long enough to join us in Thanksgiving.
He died in a very surprising second.
Although before then we went back to Enugu.
And it was amazing.
To go to doctors and the nurses communicating
That knew my story.
to the point that some people were coming from Enugu to see
That man. But
it was shortly because he died not long after that.
Thank you very much. And we wish you good health and God's blessings.
yeah.